There's a special kind of silence that follows when you decide to step away. It ain't the silence of peace, no. It's the silence that scrapes at their conscience, the kind that makes their laughter sound hollow, that makes their smiles fade a little too quickly when they think no one's watching. And trust me, kid, they're always watching. People like them. They feed off your presence, your energy, your goddamn life. But your absence, now that's a ghost they can't run from. They'll pretend they don't care. Oh, they'll keep up the charade, post their fake moments, laugh too loud at jokes that don't even tickle the soul, and talk about you like you were never more than a name in their contact list. But every time they're alone, in those quiet hours when the world gets real small and the dark seeps in, that's when it'll hit them. Your absence will wrap around their necks like a noose of regret, a weight they can't shake off. And they'll feel it. God, will they feel it? See, people don't value what they have when it's right in front of them. Nah, they get used to it. It's human nature to overlook, to take for granted, to push and pull and never think twice. But when you're gone, when the echo of your voice fades and your shadow no longer darkens their doorstep, that's when the truth comes crawling out. A truth they chose to ignore, buried under a mountain of denial and ego. But absence? That's a spotlight that doesn't forgive. You ever wonder why they always come back? Why, after they've used up all their excuses, after their lies have worn thin, they suddenly remember you exist? It's not love, kid. It's guilt. It's the gnawing realization that the world they built without you is as flimsy as the lies they told themselves to keep going. They'll call it loneliness. They'll call it a change of heart. But you know what it really is? It's the fear that maybe, just maybe, you were the only real thing they had, and they let it slip away. Pathetic, ain't it? How people don't know what they've got until they're left with nothing but memories they can't touch. And you, with your heart stitched together with scars and lessons, you think you need them back. You think you need that validation, that one more chance to prove you were worth it. But let me tell you something that took me years of madness to learn. You don't need a damn thing from them. Your absence, your silence, that's the only truth they'll ever respect. You see, the world loves noise. They crave the chaos, the background hum that keeps them from facing the quiet parts of their own mind. But silence, that's where the real power lies. In your silence, they'll hear every unspoken word, every pain they ignored, every apology they never whispered. Your absence will haunt them, not as a ghost of what was, but as a reminder of what could have been. It's a cruel truth, isn't it? But life's not fair, and neither is the lesson you're teaching them by walking away. Don't you ever let them trick you into thinking it didn't matter. You mattered. Your presence was a fire that kept them warm, and your absence is the cold that'll make them shiver for the rest of their days. And yeah, it'll hurt. Damn right, it'll hurt. But that's the price of being real in a world full of fakes. The pain reminds you that you're still here, still breathing, still capable of feeling in a way they never could. So, when they come back, and they will, with their hollow apologies and rehearsed sincerity, look them in the eyes and remember this moment. Remember the strength it took to choose yourself over the comfort of their empty promises, and then smile. Smile that knowing, wicked grin that says, you had your chance, and now your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. They say time heals all wounds, but that's just another pretty lie to make the world keep spinning without a hitch. Time doesn't heal. Time reveals. It reveals the cracks they tried to plaster over, the wounds they ignored when they pushed you away. And when you're gone long enough, when your absence becomes the new reality they have to swallow, that's when the truth settles in their bones. See, they'll try to replace you. Oh, they'll bring in the distractions, new faces, new voices to drown out the one that used to matter. But those stand-ins, they're just noise, empty echoes trying to mimic what once was real. And late at night, when their laughter dies and the world grows quiet, they'll realize that substitutes can't hold a candle to what they lost. You were irreplaceable, and that knowledge will gnaw at them like a disease. You gotta understand, kid, this ain't just about teaching them a lesson or watching them squirm. This is about finding your own strength in a world that wanted to strip you bare and leave you doubting yourself. It's about knowing that your worth wasn't determined by who stayed, who clapped for you, or who whispered sweet nothings just to keep you close. Your worth was always in you, in the fire that made them want to be near you in the first place. They'll paint you as the villain. They'll say you changed, that you were the one who walked away. But let them. Villains, after all, are just heroes whose stories were told by those who couldn't stand to see the truth. And your truth, your absence, is the story they can't rewrite, no matter how many versions of their lies they spin. Listen close, because here's the punchline no one tells you. The world doesn't care about your pain, your struggle, or the battles you fought when no one was looking. The world will pretend you never mattered until the day you prove that your silence is louder than their screams. And when that day comes, when your absence becomes the echo they can't silence, that's when you'll know you won. And winning, my dear, is knowing that you were enough, that without their validation, without their false promises, you stood tall and made them face a truth they'll carry like a scar named you. Here's the part they won't tell you in those feel-good stories and self-help pamphlets. They will remember you, not as a fleeting thought or a passing regret. No, They'll remember you as the thorn in their side that never quite healed, as the song that plays in the background of their mind whenever they're alone. Your absence isn't a period at the end of a sentence. It's an ellipsis, a haunting continuation that trails behind them wherever they go. And don't mistake this, kid, for some twisted idea of revenge. It's deeper than that. It's poetic justice. It's life paying them back in the only currency they truly understand: loss. Because when someone's had a taste of something real, something raw, everything else feels like a watered-down imitation. And that's what you were. Raw, unfiltered, painfully real. Something they weren't ready for, something they couldn't keep. So they chose the easy path, the path where they wouldn't have to face themselves. But now, with you gone, they're forced to look into that mirror they've been avoiding. And what do they see? A face that isn't half as strong, half as alive as it once was when you were around. You became the measure by which they compare everything else, and nothing quite stacks up, does it? Your absence will be the yardstick of their failure, a constant reminder that they let something slip away that wasn't supposed to be let go. You'll start to hear things, whispers in the wind, stories that trickle back to you, how they laughed a little less, how their eyes seemed more tired, how their nights were filled with the kind of silence that wraps around the throat like a vice. And maybe you'll feel a twinge of something, pity, anger, or that old ache that still hasn't quite left. But don't you dare go back. Don't you let their newfound realizations pull you into that old cycle. They chose comfort over chaos, familiarity over the fire you brought. They chose to ignore the truth that your eyes, your presence, your very being was screaming at them. And now, in your absence, that truth has found its voice. A voice that echoes in the hollow chambers of their mind, relentless, unforgiving. You see, people aren't haunted by the things they lose. They're haunted by the things they never appreciated when they had them. And you? You were that light they squinted against. Too bright, too bold, too damn honest for their carefully curated lies. But don't think that this is your story ending. Oh no, kid. This is where you rise. This is where you take all that pain, all that emptiness, and forge it into something unbreakable. Because if there's one thing the world fears more than the truth, it's someone who learns to thrive without it. You're no longer bound by their perceptions, their judgments, or their shallow ideas of who you should be. You were the storm they couldn't weather, the flame they couldn't contain. And now, in your absence, you're the ghost that will make them shiver long after the embers have cooled. And that, my friend, is the most powerful kind of freedom there is. You see, kid, there's a funny thing about absence. It doesn't just haunt the ones who took you for granted. It changes you too. It sharpens you, makes you tougher, colder in places you never thought possible. The world has this way of shaping people into weapons, but only if they survive the fires it throws them into. And you? You're still here, scarred, sure, but not broken, not by a long shot. They think your silence is weakness, that by walking away you folded, that you quit. Let them think that. It feeds their illusions, their need to believe they had the upper hand. But silence, real silence, is power. It's the refusal to dance to their tune, the defiance to not beg for scraps of attention, not to explain, not to plead. Your absence is the message that says, I am done playing by your rules. They'll reach out eventually, testing the waters with hesitant words, messages sent in the middle of the night when regret creeps into their beds like an old, unwelcome friend. They'll say they were wrong, that they didn't see what was in front of them, that you were always more than they made you feel. And for a moment, that ache inside you will flare up, that old wound itching to be scratched, to be soothed by their hollow words. But that's when you remember, kid. That's when you remind yourself of all the nights you lay awake, wondering what was so wrong with you that they couldn't see your worth. Of all the times you bit your tongue, swallowed your pride, just to keep the peace that only ever benefited them. You remember that you walked through that fire alone, rebuilt yourself with trembling hands and bloody knuckles. And you didn't do it just to let them tear you down again. Because here's the kicker. When you don't respond, when you don't give them that opening they're desperately looking for, that's when their real panic sets in. It's not about you coming back. It's about realizing you don't need to. It's about facing the truth that your absence is permanent, that their chapter in your story is closed, and they're left stranded in a narrative they thought they controlled. Oh, how the mighty fall when they realize they're not the center of someone's world anymore. It's a blow to their ego, a wound that festers, because they never prepared for a day where you'd wake up and choose yourself. And that's the sweetest irony, isn't it? The very thing they underestimated in you, your resilience, your heart, your willingness to give, became the thing they missed the most. But you found something more valuable than their belated admiration. You found you, the you that doesn't compromise for the comfort of others. The you that knows your worth isn't measured by who claps when you win or who sticks around when it's convenient. You've become the person who can look in the mirror and see strength staring back, not because they validated it, but because you earned it through the hell they put you through. So don't mourn what's lost. Don't let their regrets become your shackles. Stand tall. Let your silence scream the truth they can't bear to hear. You walked away, and you're better for it. And as they sit in that silence, their own minds echoing with the weight of what they let slip away, you walk forward into a world that might be cruel, but is yours to conquer. There's a moment right before dawn when the world is at its quietest. It's when the liars and pretenders sleep, and the ones who have nothing left to lose stare at the ceiling, wide awake, haunted by the choices they made. That's the time when their mind whispers the things they tried to bury. That's when your absence isn't just a passing thought. It's a storm roaring in their chest, making them choke on the realization that you're not coming back. Oh, they'll act tough in the daylight, play it cool like they're unbothered. It's easy to fake it when the sun's up, when there's noise and people around to distract them. But in that pre-dawn silence, where there's no one to fool, that's where the truth stabs deep. That's where they hear the echo of every word they didn't say, every moment they let slip through their fingers, and it'll claw at them, gnawing until they're raw inside, because they know deep down they gambled and lost. See, people are wired to chase what they don't have, to long for what's just out of reach. But you're not just out of reach. You're gone, beyond their grasp, a memory that grows sharper the more they try to forget. And here's the part they never saw coming. Your silence won't just be a chapter they skim over. It'll be the headline of their sleepless nights, a neon sign flashing in their mind with one word: regret. They'll tell themselves stories to make sense of it, that you changed, that you became cold, distant, someone they didn't recognize. But the truth, the part that'll keep them twisting and turning at night, is that you didn't change. You just woke up. You realized that their half-hearted love, their conditional loyalty, wasn't worth the parts of yourself you sacrificed just to keep them close. And when you walk down the street, head held high, and they catch a glimpse of you, different now, stronger, eyes that don't hold the same hope they used to, that's when it'll hit them like a train. They'll feel the weight of what they lost, the missed opportunities, the thousands of moments they'll never get back. And maybe they'll try to reach out, drop hints, test the waters with a casual, "How have you been?" as if the silence between you wasn't a chasm they dug with their own hands. But you'll know better. You'll know that the version of you they once knew is gone, replaced by someone who learned that letting go wasn't weakness, it was freedom. And that freedom, it's the most dangerous thing you could have. It means you don't need their validation, their praise, their empty words. It means you survived the storm and came out harder, sharper, a version of yourself that won't be fooled again. And here's the punchline, kid. When they're finally brave enough to admit it, to whisper to themselves in the dark that losing you was their biggest mistake, it won't change a damn thing. Because your absence isn't a story with a twist ending where they win you back. No, it's the kind of story that leaves them sitting in the quiet, knowing they were their own villain all along. So let them stare at their screens, rereading old messages, watching your life move on without them. Let them smile in public while their insides twist with every reminder of what they let slip away. And you keep walking step by step into a future that no longer waits for anyone's approval. Because the strongest people are those who learn that sometimes the greatest power lies not in holding on, but in having the courage to let go. And someday when you're far past this, you'll look back and realize that choosing yourself wasn't just the right choice. It was the only choice. And their silence, it'll be the loudest confession they never meant to make. And you know what's funny? They'll act surprised, like they didn't see it coming, as if the silence you left behind was some grand, unexpected twist. But deep down, they knew. They felt the shift long before you walked away, felt the chill in your words, the way your eyes stopped searching theirs for the honesty that was never there. They ignored it, hoping you'd stay out of habit, out of that cursed loyalty that made you fight for them when they wouldn't lift a finger for you. But loyalty without respect, that's a chain, not a bond. And when you finally broke that chain, when you stepped into your own light and left their shadows behind, they were left staring at the empty space you once filled. That space won't stay quiet for them. No, it'll become a void, pulling at their thoughts like a black hole, reminding them that something is missing and it's their own damn fault. That they'll try to fill it, of course. They always do. With people who don't know them like you did, who don't see their cracks and call them out on it. But that kind of distraction only works for so long, because here's the truth they can't run from. Once you've been seen, truly seen by someone, anything less feels like a lie. And they'll feel that emptiness gnawing at them every time they catch a glimpse of someone who isn't you. You might wonder why I'm telling you this, why I'm painting this picture of their regret when it's your heart that still aches, your nights that still feel too long. It's because I need you to understand that walking away wasn't just a step. It was a declaration. It was you telling the universe, I will not be forgotten. I will not be overlooked. I am not here to be a second choice. And that declaration, it echoes, louder than you know, reaching places you can't see, shaking the walls they built to keep themselves comfortable. They'll say they didn't mean for things to end like this, that it all just got out of hand. But words are cheap, and remorse only matters when it changes something. But you've changed, haven't you? You're not the same person who'd wait for an apology that never came. You've learned that closure isn't a gift they give. It's a decision you make for yourself. And that's where your real power lies. They'll reach for memories, for fragments of who you were when you still believed in them. But memories don't hold you anymore. They hold them. You've become the scar they can't hide, the ache they can't soothe. And even if they bury it, pile distractions and new faces on top of it, there will be nights when it all falls away and the silence comes back. Your absence, louder than any words they wish they could say. So what now, huh? You keep moving forward. You take every piece of that hurt and turn it into fuel. You build a life that doesn't just survive their loss, but thrives in spite of it. You become the person they can't touch, can't reach. And as they watch from the sidelines, with regret heavy in their chest, you'll know that your absence did exactly what it was meant to do. It spoke the truth they chose to ignore. And when they finally admit to themselves that they let something irreplaceable slip away, it'll be too late. Because by then, you'll be too far ahead to hear their whispered confessions, too strong to care about their delayed realizations. You'll be untouchable, unbreakable. And them? They'll be left to sit in that silence, the same silence that once belonged to you. And they'll know it wasn't you who lost. It was them all along.